And part of this is to do with the CMHC, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, that is supposedly there to actually help home buyers buy a home. But the reality is, the CMHC basically creates massive moral hazard in the Canadian housing market. It makes it almost impossible for people to be able to buy a home, because the thing is, essentially what the CMHC does is takes risk away from the banks through an insurance policy that they believe essentially that will just be honoured no matter what. And over time, you've seen exactly the same emotions that caused the housing bubble in the US housing market, which is essentially people just believe housing prices cannot and will not go down on a wide scale. Now, a lot of people don't recognise that when you look at the first leg down in this Canadian housing market crash, it has been way more substantial than the US housing market crash in 2008. US home prices went down around 13% between 2006 and 2008. Meanwhile, in Canada, home prices went down over 20% on a national level, and they did that in less than a year. Wow. So the decline was not just more severe, it was much faster than the US housing market. What that illustrates to me is that we are in a housing market crash. There are still people out there, many people on YouTube, who are questioning even if this is a crash, which I just think is absolutely ludicrous. If you look around at some of the places which got really frothy, where you had home prices double, I'm talking about rural Ontario, rural BC, where you saw people speculating, buying second and third properties, buying Airbnbs, all this kind of stuff. You've seen home prices decline by 40 to 50% when you factor in inflation. And not only that, guys, the housing market is completely frozen in these places, because what happened was, and I predicted that this would happen, and again, I didn't predict that because I'm any type of genius, because I'm not. It's just because I think critically, and it was very obvious to me that this was going to happen. When you had a lot of people that were moving out, they wanted a second property that was out in the country where they had more space and everything like that, they were pricing out the people in that market who could afford homes and who support the housing market there. So essentially, if they ever had to return to the office, or the Airbnb situation didn't work out for them, then guess what they would have to do? They would have to sell that property, and who would they be selling to? They'd be selling it to people who couldn't afford it. And not only that, the people who own the property there, most of them owned them before 2021. So you have to remind yourself that a lot of these people have much smaller mortgages. So when home prices line, they can list their house for much less than people who bought at the height of the bubble who can't afford to take a loss. And you see this all over, where housing prices have just been driven up massively. It's happened in Alberta, it's happening a little later in Alberta than other places like in Nova Scotia, where you've had buyers just inflate prices and think that everything will be fine, prices will just go up, this is undervalued. They're comparing entirely different places and entirely different economies and expecting the same result. That is just complete insanity. That is completely stupid. But that is what happens when you're in a housing market bubble. Housing bubbles are driven by human emotion and human psychology. It's how we think and how we react that drives these bubbles. The stakes are so high because these bubbles have been driven to the absolute height that people thought was not even possible. Much bigger than the housing bubble in 2008 in the US. And the worst thing is that the economy has become more dependent on the housing market than the US even did. And we saw the economic catastrophe that hit the US as a result of that massive housing bubble. It's kind of insane to me, but the Canadian housing market is responsible for more than 40% of GDP growth. Back in 2021, a lot of people were buying second and third homes. We had Better Dwelling that were reporting on this, and in fact they put out many reports in 2022 that showed a lot of the buyers, over 30%, over 50% in a lot of these areas where home prices boomed, were buying second and third properties, and essentially they were speculating. They thought there was no risk of buying a home, home prices will never go down. They heard from the mainstream media, the politicians, the YouTubers, and they were all saying, oh, you know what, home prices are never going to go down in Canada because we've got a structural supply problem and we've got all these immigrants coming in. Problem is, nobody talks about how these immigrants are buying a home. Nobody talks about a lot of them are committing fraud. Nobody talks about that they can't afford the rents. You know, we've seen record amounts of rent increases this year in Canada. Can people afford that? Absolutely not. When you look at median in places that are even higher than the national average, like Calgary, people can't afford these rents that they're paying. So as soon as an economic crisis sets in, the last person you're going to want to be is a landlord. And that is exactly what has boomed in Calgary over the past year. You've had lots of people from Ontario getting into the housing market here, buying condominiums. I know a guy who works in new construction in Calgary, and he says like over 50% of the condo sales are going unseen to people from Ontario. So just think about this. All these people right before a recession are becoming landlords. I mean, I think it's just so dumb. But once again, guys, as you know, it's an emotional market. You know, we always want to try and rationalize why the market is acting in a certain way. But we don't realize that when you're in a financial bubble, the market is largely irrational and it's running on human emotions. So it can pretty much do anything it wants at certain turns. And all you know is when you look at a bubble cycle, that is a pattern of human emotion that you see. So logically, you're likely to see the same thing. You're likely to get to fear and capitulation at some point. And we've been told time and time again that there's a supply problem and, you know, that's just going to keep home prices inflated. But like I told you, we've already seen home prices crash. I mean, the ludicrous thing about the argument to do with immigration, it's almost as bad as saying all the people coming across the southern border in the United States are going to prop up home prices in the US. I mean, it's just absolutely insane when you really think about it. But people think a lot of the people that come to Canada have loads of money. The complete opposite of that. They are mostly poor people working those lower skilled jobs, and they depend more on public services. If you're looking for a VPN, which you desperately need because of things like Bill C-11, go to expressvpn.com/marketmania. If you've enjoyed this video, then maybe you should check out this video here. Thank you so much for your continued support, and I will see you in the next one.
Cineguzo? Oh, Cineplex. Oh, fuck no.
We go back now to our top story. Quebec is going ahead with its decision.
Shocking Canadian government closed. What? After the accidental killing of 3 Israeli hostages Friday, Israeli managed to just mistake, advising the troops to not make it again. Fucking idiot. Apparently taking risks by approaching. Oh my god. White Claw, identify yourself. Fuck you. They can't speak in Hebrew, like help. What the fuck?
אני אומר לך, מי שהתבלבל פה, גם מי שנלחם איתנו, ועכשיו הניח את הנשק ומרים ידיים, אנחנו צובעים אותו, אנחנו לא יורים בו. אנחנו מוצאים המון מודיעין.
What the fuck? Those 3 people that they accidentally killed, they literally were yelling for help and went on their knees and put their hands up, and they shot them anyway. What the fuck?
מצאנו הערב תמונות, ממש עכשיו, שמבנה בו שהו 3 החטופים כ-200 מטר ממקום האירוע בו אירע האסון. אנחנו עדיין לא יודעים להגיד כמה זמן שהו במבנה.
Unfucking. That is so fucked up.
Bombings are going to continue.
We might, give the food and they will be for a while, full. But then they go out and they stay at home and they will be killed by the Israeli bombs.
Hamas has said no more hostages will be released until the war ends. RCMP say parents, guardians, and teachers should be on alert for signs that young people are being influenced by online extremism. The Mounties say there have now been 5 Canadian youth arrested on terror-related cases since June. The United Nations Migration Agency says a boat carrying dozens capsized off the coast of Libya, leaving more than 60 people dead.
The agency says in a statement the boat was carrying 86 migrants when strong waves swamped it off the town of Zuwara on Libya's western coast, and that over 60 migrants drowned. That's according to survivors. Saturday's shipwreck is the latest tragedy in this part of the Mediterranean Sea, a key route for migrants seeking a better life in Europe. Thousands have died, according to officials. I'm Charles Little-Desma.
Violent threats against lawyers for Ibrahim Ali in his recent first-degree murder trial in Vancouver are prompting calls for more safety measures in court. The director of the Canadian Council of Criminal Defense Lawyers says he's stunned by a lack of response to Kevin McCullough's request for better security in court in light of the threats. Richard Fowler says threats against defense lawyers are unacceptable and notes it's their job to undermine the case against their clients, even if it's unsettling to hear.
I can't imagine anything more upsetting to any lawyer than death threats, and then to learn that there's a possibility that a loaded firearm brought into the courtroom is just absolutely scandalous. It's outrageous that it was allowed to happen. It shouldn't have happened, and it can't be allowed to happen again.
Fowler notes that neither Crown prosecutors nor the judge raised concerns during McCullough's closing arguments. And a study finds Canadian communities in high-risk wildfire areas can save big by opting for fire-resistant construction choices. The study by the Intact Center on Climate Adaptation at the University of Waterloo estimates those communities could save $34 for every dollar spent on fire-resistant construction. This is the Canadian Press.
Now, an update from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
It's a very quiet drive for you right now. No issues heading to or from the West Island. The T10 and the 20 both doing just fine. The Illatort Bridge does remain closed completely in both directions until tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Outbound LaFontaine Tunnel, minor delays, not even quite backing to Souligny, won't cost you more than maybe 2 minutes or so. The rest of your South Shore spans are doing fine. eBox 100% fiber internet, 500 megabytes per second at $59 per month. Is just what you need to binge watch your holiday classics. Details at ebox.ca. Traffic and transit every 15 minutes on CJAD 800. Your next report at 7:15.
Fresh take on your number one station. Open Mic Night on CJAD 800.
And 7 degrees right now in downtown Montreal. My name is Kelly Alexander, and thank you very much for joining me tonight on Open Mic Night here on CJAD 800. And I wanted to start off the evening because there's a rainfall warning, so we definitely have to talk about the weather. And it's kind of crazy in the fact that on December 17th, I should be telling you about a snowstorm warning, or a snowstorm is on the way. But no, rainfall is where we are at. And so keep in mind that from this evening until tomorrow evening, there's a possibility of between 40 to 70 millimeters expected. So that is going to mean that you should give yourself some extra time as you make your way into work tomorrow. Obviously, hydroplaning could be an issue as well, so watch your speed. And of course, they are warning as well with this rainfall warning that low-lying areas could have some local flooding. So keep that in mind. And then just overnight tonight, just so you know, rain, it'll be a little bit windy, of course. The temperature will rise to 9 by the morning, but right now we are sitting at 7 degrees in downtown Montreal. So very excited to be spending time with you for the next 2 hours. We've got some great guests that we have that are going to join us. We're going to be speaking to psychologist Marianne Van Oyen. She's going to be joining us after 8:30 to talk about how to navigate the holidays regarding our mental health, because even though the festive season is supposed to be festive, there's also a lot of stress and anxiety that can creep in. So she's going to talk to us about that. And on the way around 8:20, we're going to be speaking to political analyst David Hertel, talking about the tuition hikes for English universities here in Quebec, also the state of the Big O, and if Montreal really is missing out on what I'll call economy-boosting concerts from artists like the Beyoncés and Taylor Swifts of the world. So that's coming up after 8:20. Right after the 8 o'clock news, we're actually going to have a little musical treat for you. We're going to be chatting with Canadian recording artist Afros, discussing her latest album called Roses and what it was like to sing backing vocals for Grammy and Juno Award-winning singers Daniel Caesar and Jesse Reyes. So that should be a lot of fun. And this hour, we've got some more guests for you, including financial advisor Arnie Zweig. We also have Montreal Gazette columnist James Meny, and even a chit chat with my mom, who I affectionately love to call Mummy Alexander. She's going to discuss the importance of sending out holiday cards. So that's coming up after 7:30. But first, as we actually close in on Christmas, it's it's good to remember the importance of giving and supporting our fellow Montrealers who may be experiencing challenging times, trying to keep themselves and their families fed. So joining us right now is Kim Reed, founder and president of On Rock Community Services, an organization that focuses on helping members of the community who are struggling with food insecurity. So Kim, thank you so much for joining us tonight on CJAD 800.
Well, thank you for having me.
So Kim, I want to start by getting the lay of the land, if you will, because obviously it's been a trying time, not only for Montrealers, Canadians right across the country, cost of inflation, food prices going up. What effects from all of this have you noticed on the front lines here in Montreal?
Well, we just did our big Christmas food distribution on Saturday, in which we distributed to about 300 families. And so for that, we need 300 turkeys. And we have a great team on the West Island that raises our turkeys every year.
Oh, wow.
Usually by November, I would say 15th, we've got 300 turkeys.
What?
This year, 4 days before the event, we had 180 turkeys because the cost of living is just risen to the point where a lot of the people who give are struggling themselves. And so we had a challenge getting the turkeys. Now, luckily, some people came forward and foundations that covered all that. But it's very clear that as the food came in this year, that the cost of living was definitely affecting the level of generosity in the West Island. And the generosity in the West Island is always over the top.
Yeah. For sure, for sure.
Find that, a lot of people are actually coming up short on a weekly basis when it comes to feeding themselves and their families?
We're getting more and more people who are coming to us who, as you say, they've been able to historically pay their mortgage and their rent, buy their food, take care of their car, and the other expenses that come with having your kids in sports and stuff. We're finding now that people are coming to us and going, if I don't get food, then I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage if I buy food, and I'll lose my house.
What?
So we're seeing more.
Yeah, but welcome to fucking reality for the rest of us.
Who are now calling us up and saying, "Do you think you could help me this week?"
No. Do you find too that the need for donations, specifically this year, is on the rise during the winter months, especially as we are in the holiday period?
Well, yeah. But the reason is because the economy, right?
Okay.
Like usually, Christmas is the time of year where we stock up so that and all food banks stock up so that we can have supplies in January, February, March.
Mm-hmm.
This year, yes, we stocked up, but we don't know how far that's going to go.
Joining us on CJD right now is founder and president of OnRock Community Services, Kim Reed. And for more information, you can visit their website, onrock.org. Kim, for those of us listening right now, what are the most important items that we can bring to an organization like yours at OnRock?
I think that most organizations like us right now, the number one, and we're always shy to say it, is money.
Oh.
We need to be able to take care of our expenses so that we can keep our doors open. After that, it would definitely be the staples of food: flour, rice,
Bread,
sugar, bread, eggs,
milk,
stuff like that. Because those are the harder items to come by. And like I said, the
non-perishable
community has been
stuff you don't
incredibly
have to
generous.
heat.
But at the same time, we got to realize that the community is struggling in its own way. So we need to find other avenues and other companies, whatever it takes to continue to deal with this, because
Our government's not
as
doing
Denise
it
has
all,
said,
so.
it's like 30 or 35% increase in food security, insecurity, and that's only going to rise as far as we can see.
Do you find, I know you mentioned earlier on that, some people out in your neck of the woods have stepped up to try to, help you with the turkey initiative for the holidays. Do you think that there are other companies out there that could be of assistance that maybe don't know they can be of assistance or don't know about, an organization like yourself?
That's a possibility. Like, we do our best to network, but we can't get everybody. So if anytime we hear of somebody who's got a possibility to help, we jump on them right away to see, like, can you really help us?
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people out there who probably just don't understand the need at the level that it is. And so we've got to just make sure that we're doing a good job of communicating that to people.
I wanted to ask you as well, because you mentioned again earlier that you're normally stocking up for the new year at this time of the year. So are you very concerned about how you and your organization, other organizations like yours at other districts of the city are going to get through January, February, March?
Yeah, I'm definitely concerned. I think there are things that we are doing to just reach out and try and network with each other and make it work for all of us. But it's a tough time because we can't predict what people are going to be able to give and how they're going to be able to be involved. And even some of the people who haven't been involved have basically told us, look, we need to dial it back. So if you're giving us an amount of food that we're depending on, and you're now telling me I've got to dial it back, we got to find that somewhere else. So yes, we're reaching out to as many companies as we can, and there are companies out there that if you haven't thought about
Is that you?
consider the food bank in your neighborhood. You don't even need to just consider OnRock. If you're in the East End, look up with the food bank in the East End and find out what they need. We're all doing the same work.
I wanted to ask you as well before we wrap up, is there a date that you hope to have all of your Christmas related food items in by? Like, should we be dropping things off by the 23rd of December, or are you still taking in food on the 24th?
We will take in food right up until the 24th. Our big day of picking up, like, we've got 100 boxes in the community in different stores and clubs and all kinds of stuff. We have 100 organizations in the West Island collecting food for us, and we pick all those up on Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay. Kim, I want to thank you so much for doing this with us tonight, and thank you for all the work that you do, you and your organization. It's very much appreciated.
Well, I want to thank you guys for highlighting it. We need you as much as you need us.
Well, Kim, thank you so much, and wishing you all the best for the holiday season and all the best for 2024.
And you as well.
Thank you very much. That is Kim Reed, founder and president of On Rock Community Services. For more information, again, or to donate, you can visit their website, onrock.org. Coming up after traffic, we're actually going to be speaking to the Montreal Gazette's James Menny about where we stand on the teacher strike. Right now, though, 7:15, so time to head off to the CJD Traffic Center and check in with Robin Flynn.
Thanks, Kelly. Right now, the only spot that we're seeing any volume is for the outbound LaFontaine Tunnel, and even then, it's maybe 2-3 minutes of additional volume from Souligny. Inbound tunnel looks fine. The rest of your South Shore spans are working well. No delays heading to or from the West Island. The T10 and the 20 both moving nicely. Just keep in mind that the Illator Bridge is closed in both directions until tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Shop Marché Adonis for fresh fruit at low prices. Until December 20th, on the vine tomatoes are only $1.99 a pound. Traffic in transit every 15 minutes on CJD 800. Next report, 7:30.
The Virgin Plus Big Boxing Week event is here.
Check out these deals. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Prices fit for those post-holiday wallets.
It's like a gift that keeps on giving.
Right now, get great prices on phones and data plans.
Let's keep shopping.
Have a pay transparency plan but don't know how to get started? Let us help you put your plan in motion. Say hi to Bob, the modern HR platform that activates your pay transparency plan. Identify pay gaps by gender, ethnicity.
To what extent do you trust your government? Do you think your government would lie to you, attack them, and around to you? And if so, why? In our episode, How Consumer Propaganda Changed America, we were introduced to Sigmund Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays. He created a new kind of firm in America, one that specialized in propaganda campaigns meant to motivate consumers into buying more and more of the things they didn't need. This marked the birth of a new American industry that would be called public relations. Unlike his clients, who included businessmen, celebrities, and notable politicians, Bernays himself was not motivated by fortune, fame, or even political office. What Bernays wanted was a peaceful, prospering American democracy. And in order to have that, Bernays believed that the masses needed to be controlled by an intelligent minority. This story is about the fight for America's consciousness that broke out in the early 30s between America's politicians and its corporations. In its aftermath, Edward Bernays would unite America around a reaction fears. Fears that Bernays felt that America would be strong enough to sway Americans
There we go, grocery store.
as the corporations, the president, and the CIA
Get pork chops.
would all band together to feed the American public lives.
No?
In 1974, the President of the United States, Calvin Coolidge, hired Bernays to help with the public image because Americans thought Coolidge was super bullish. Not the President feeling relatable and Bernays organized campus breakfast at the White House for Coolidge, famous senators, and actresses. The event was widely publicized, and Bernays continued to work for Coolidge as he prepared his second term in office. Coolidge was now widely seen as a popular and successful president, and in no small part thanks to America's